Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha, Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Zechariah, the 11th chapter. And, pretty much in this chapter, from a high level overview, it mainly deals with the judgments that the Lord is pronouncing here against. You have wicked Israelites as well as wicked Israelite leaders, mainly that are misleading the flock and those that are following them as well. Okay, so let's go into it. This is Zechariah chapter 11 verse 1. It says here, "Open thy doors, O Lebanon, that the fire may devour thy cedars. Howl, fir tree, for the cedar is fallen, because the mighty are spoiled. Howl, O ye oaks of Bashan, for the forest of the vintage is come down." And pretty much, by the mouth of Zechariah, the Lord is pronouncing judgment against, these regions here, which is applicable to Israel. Okay. Now, though it's mentioning here the cedar trees, right? The saying, "Howl, Lebanon, for the fire may open thy doors, that the fire may devour thy cedars," right? Howl, fir tree. Now we know that the fir tree, right? Cedars, fir tree, all of these things right here, yes, they're used for building, right? And especially the cedar tree and the fir tree, because they have like natural oils that actually make them what's the word I'm looking, resistant to moisture and like decay. So it's actually very good for buildings, right? When you use like cedar wood, for example, for buildings to last long, okay, or just anything that you build with it. Anyway, they don't actually like howl, right? This is something that is symbolic, okay, of the actual people, because the fire that's coming to devour them, all right, or bring this time of distress, that's judgment. And the judgment the Lord is bringing is not against it's not because the trees, okay, or the oaks or any of those, or the forest actually wronged the Lord, but rather the inhabitants of the land and the things that they were doing. Okay, so when you go into it, there are other precepts that liken these trees or men onto trees, metaphorically speaking. It says here, "For the forest of the vintage is come down. There is a voice of the howling of the shepherds, for their glory is spoiled." Yeah, because the shepherds what do shepherds do, right? They have their flock and they take them out to graze. Okay, but in this case, the Lord is speaking here as to like the devouring of these trees, of the forest, of the oaks, right? And so the glory that's being spoiled here would be like the pastures here that the shepherds would take their sheep to graze. Okay, once again, this is to signify a time of distress because of the judgment that the Lord is going to bring upon Israel. It says, "A voice of the roaring of young lions, for the pride of Jordan is spoiled," right? So building upon that same point of those trees and all of that being destroyed, when you actually go into just a bit of context about the region, I'm actually going to look up here lion, and it'll give us a bit of information here. But around that region of Jordan, okay, you actually did have some lions, right? Like lions and all that would dwell around that region in past times. Hence, when you read in the scriptures like the book of Kings, it talks about how when the heathens were imported into the land of Samaria, right, the northern kingdom's land, they weren't following the ways of the land, so the Lord sent lions amongst them to devour them, right? Where did those lions come from? And many other precepts. But let me see if I can find one here. Goes into Okay, let's take a look at lions. Here we go. It says here, the lion of Palestine was properly of the Asiatic variety, distinguished from the African variety, which is larger. Yet it not only attacked flocks in the presence of the shepherd, but also laid waste towns and villages, and devoured men. Shepherds sometimes single-handedly encountered lions and slew them. And then it goes into here with Samson, but this is not the one I'm looking for. The one I'm looking for is, let's see. Here we go. It says the most powerful of all carnivorous animals, although not now found in Palestine, they must have been in ancient times very numerous there. They had their lairs in the forests, in the caves of the mountains, and in the cane breakers or cane breaks of the banks of the Jordan. Okay, and so going back to Zechariah 11, right? Even these lions here are going to be roaring, as it says, for the pride of Jordan is spoiled. Once again, you know, in the analogical sense, right, where the analogy is being drawn from is likened onto this destruction devouring the trees, the forest, the thickets where the lions were, right, by Jordan, the pastures where the shepherds would take their sheep to graze, and that was going to bring distress upon them. Okay, but as we explained before, these in a figurative sense, the trees represent the people. Okay, that the Lord obviously was going to bring judgment upon. Going on, verse 4, and we're going to read why he was going to bring that judgment. So it says here, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, my power, feed the flock of the slaughter. Now, who are the flock of the slaughter? The flock of the slaughter are Israel. Okay, and we're going to see why they're likened unto the flock of the slaughter. And ultimately, how was the flock of the slaughter supposed to be fed? With this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, as the Lord said he would do. So let's go there real quick. I think this is Jeremiah. Let me see. I will feed you with. There we go. Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 15. And I will give you pastors according to mine heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. And so in this case, you can liken the pastors onto shepherds and the food and those being fed onto sheep. And just like similarly to how a shepherd would take the sheep out to graze to feed them, the pastors or the prophets or the teachers or the leaders that the Lord would raise up would feed his flock or the nation of Israel with the truth, okay, with the true knowledge and understanding of the scriptures. Okay, that is the true food. Verse 5, whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. And they that sell them say, blessed be the Lord Yahweh, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. Okay, now, and this applies, right? Because this is something that we've had to go through, you know, via the various different captivities, but primarily under Esau, Edom, right? Because our possessors are those that hold us captive. And as it says, whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. Now, when you look even as an example of like the modern day times that we're in, and even a little prior to that, those that we've been captive under, primarily Esau, Edom, right, have, you know, there's many cases where they'll put Israelites to death, but they don't, you know, even if they get that case goes to trial or whatever, you know, there's either A, not a harsh penalty or judgment for it, or B, there's nothing is done about it at all. Okay, so that's how they slay us and hold themselves not guilty, and that's why Israel here is likened onto the flock of the slaughter. Of course, this didn't happen with just the reign of the Edomites, all right, but even under the different captivities that we went through, or that Israel went through as a nation, you know, this still happened. Okay, but more so under Esau, Edom. It says, blessed be the Lord, and they that sell them say, blessed be the Lord Yahweh, for I am rich. Right, because when we were their slaves, okay, they would sell us and they would actually make money off of us, right, as though we were property. And so you would sell one slave for a certain amount of money, auction them and sell them, and they would bless the Lord, so to speak, for making money off of that. And their own shepherds pity them not. And so the own shepherds are likened unto the leaders, okay, that are supposed to, as we read in Jeremiah 3, lead our people in the right way. Because within our nation, you would have those that would be looked at as figures of influence. And today you would say like they have a following, right? Or a big following. Well, that's likened onto a shepherd having a flock that follows him. Okay, so those in those positions among our people that are supposed to be leading our people the right way, as it says, pity them not. So they instead of looking at the condition of our people and actually, trying to lead them the right way, they're more concerned about how to take advantage of them, how to fill up their pockets, how to benefit, off of the ignorance of the people. And hence they don't have pity on them. Verse 6, for I will no more pity the inhabitants of the land, saith the Lord Yahweh. But lo, I will deliver the men, every one into his neighbor's hand, and into the hand of his king, and they shall smite the land, and out of their hand I will not deliver them. Yeah. So basically what the Lord is saying here is, because of all this, because of the number one, the disobedience of Israel, because of the wickedness of these false leaders and these idol shepherds, he is no longer going to have pity upon the inhabitants of the land. And men being delivered into the neighbor's hand, when you're delivered into somebody's hand, you're pretty much at their mercy. Okay, so this really signifies violence, right? Infighting, violence, unjust deeds, right, that would be done between neighbor and neighbor, but also between whoever the ruler is and the rest of the people, right? And as it says, and shall smite the land, and out of their hand I will not deliver them. So whatever turmoil and chaos would come of this, the Lord would just let it be, right? He wouldn't put us in a favorable position, okay, as a form of punishment or judgment. Verse 7, and I will feed the flock of the slaughter, even you, O poor of the flock. Right now we know, like we read up above, you have the flock of the slaughter, right, which are the the Israelites. But just like you have Israel, and then you have the Israel of God, which are the select few amongst them. Okay, in here the poor of the flock are likened onto the elect, right? Because they are the ones, as we're going to read on down, okay, that would ultimately seek the Lord, that would actually be fed of the Lord. Okay, and how would they be fed? Well, like we read in Jeremiah the 3rd chapter, they would be fed by pastors that the Lord would raise according to his heart, who would feed them with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, i.e., the correct understanding of the scriptures, by breaking it down, by teaching it to them. Okay, because if you really think about it, teaching someone is likened onto feeding their mind. All right, when you take some information, the reason you have teachers is because certain topics or certain pieces of information, knowledge, it's not some might be esoteric, some might not be as straightforward, right? Like if you go to the store and you have you buy groceries, right? You don't buy the groceries and then just come and eat it. And when I say groceries, I'm referring to like produce and those kinds of things, right? Meats and all of that. If you go to the store and you buy steak, you buy chicken, it doesn't come, unless you're buying it, from like one of maybe Stop and Shop or BJ's, where they got the rotisserie chicken that's already prepared. But if you go and you just buy the raw stuff, you don't just come home and just eat it raw. You need to have an intermediary step where you prepare it. So you take it from that raw state and put it into a state where it's now easy to be digested, to be eaten. It's in a state that somebody can actually eat it, and then you feed it to someone. So that's likened onto the job of the teachers, whose job it is to take the scriptures, right, the information in its raw state that might not be clear immediately to somebody, and to explain it or break it down so that now this person who is listening can listen and receive it, or in other words, can be fed. 1 second. All right. So it says here, and I took unto me 2 staffs. The one I called Beauty, and the other I called Bands, and I fed the flock. Now, as we keep on reading, we'll find out what the 2 staffs represent. Okay. And as the Lord is going to say when he actually decided to break them. Okay. But, as an overview, the beauty represents the covenant, okay, of peace and mercy the Lord had with us. And the bands, the staff called bands, represented the unity or the bond or the brotherhood between the two, the kingdom that was split, i.e. the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel. Okay, so that bond or brotherhood between them is what the other staff bands represented. It says here, and I fed the flock. 3 shepherds also I cut off in 1 month, and my soul loathed them, and their soul also abhorred me. Now, the 3 shepherds here, that I cut off in 1 month, is not for you to get hung over or like get caught up on. Oh, three specific shepherds. I got to go find out who these are. But this is like, generally speaking, okay, as a representation of the wicked shepherds or false leaders of our people. And the point the Lord is making here is he cut off these wicked shepherds or leaders that were misleading our people. And as it says, my soul loathed them. And when you go into that word loathed, it means to grow irritated with. Okay, let's go there real quick. It says here, to be short, to be impatient, be vexed, be grieved. So in essence, the Lord was irritated. He grew impatient with these wicked shepherds, seeing how they were misleading his sheep. Hence, he cut them off. And this is just here an example, as to show the Lord's lack of long suffering towards this. Hence, he says here, I cut off 3 shepherds in 1 month. It's like saying in 1 month alone, I cut off 3 shepherds because of their misleading ways. Okay. It says here, and my soul loathed them, and their soul also abhorred me. Right. Because that's why they were misleading the sheep, because the Lord's instruction is for us to lead the sheep in the right way, to feed them the correct food, i.e. teach them the correct things. But that's not what these false leaders are doing. And also, not just them, but those that are following them. All right, because when you try to bring the correction towards them, though both the false leaders and those following them come against you, and in essence, they come against the Lord. Okay. Then said I will not feed you. That dieth, let it die, and that is to be cut off, let it be cut off. And let the rest eat every one the flesh of another. So basically what happened here is the Lord grew tired, right? He said, you know what? All right, whatever. I'm done with this, because here it is. I tried to feed you. I tried to, raise up correct, shepherds that would lead you in the right way. But in my efforts to do that, you had these false shepherds that came up, and then you had, majority of Israelites following them anyway. Okay. And so the Lord said, you know what? Fine. I won't even, I'm not even going to bother anymore. Right. Whatever comes of it, let it come of it. If you end up being misled to your detriment, then so be it. You end up being cut off, so be it. Right. It says, and let the rest eat every one the flesh of another. Now, eating the flesh of another is not literal, meaning that, this guy going to turn around and all of a sudden he sees this guy's hand and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna get a bite out of that. A nice fresh bite. That's not what it's talking about. Okay, eating the flesh of another, meaning that they're gonna basically fall into the hands of each other, right? Either being robbed, either being, at the mercy of another, right? Whether it's actual, violence or whatever the case may be, right? And you'll see, as a matter of fact, I wonder if I can cross-reference that specific part of the verse. I think we can. If we go down a little bit. Yeah, and let the rest eat everyone the flesh of, and then it goes into that, right? Note this in this verse is actual literal, right? Cannibalism, but that's not what we're looking for here. Let's see. I believe there might be one here. Let's see if we go to the book of Micah. There's actually one in there. Should be the book of Micah. Let's take a look. Micah 3. There we go. This is the book of Micah, chapter 3, verse 1. And I said, hear, I pray you, O heads of Jacob, and ye princes of the house of Israel. Is it not for you to know judgment? Right, because being in this position, you would be expected to know and understand and judge righteously. Who hate the good and love the evil, who pluck off their skin from off them, and their flesh from off their bones, who also eat the flesh of my people, and flay their skin from off them, and they break their bones, and chop them in pieces as for the pot, and as flesh within the cauldron. So were these people actually grabbing people and chopping them up, skinning them, preparing them for dinner? No. Okay, this is metaphorical. Them plucking off the skin from off them, peeling off the flesh and all that, breaking their bones, meaning that they were taking advantage of the people. They were misleading them. They were leading them in the wrong direction. Okay, and they were gaining benefits off of the people. Like, what's an example? Today, you may have like a church, right, where you have a pastor, and the pastor goes in there and he knows very well that what he's teaching the people is taking them further and further away from the truth. When you read the book of Ezekiel, the 37th chapter, the nation of Israel going from a state of being destitute and not knowing who they are, who the Most High is, what the truth of the Bible is, their inheritance, not knowing that was us being likened unto a valley of dry bones. But as you keep reading the chapter, it likens the point where the Lord little by little starts to bring us back to our heritage, who we are, the knowledge of the scriptures, the unity between, the different tribes. That's likened onto the flesh and the sinews and the skin being put on us, on those dry bones, and then the breath coming into them, which is the complete understanding of the scriptures. So when we're reading here in Micah, what you're reading of is like the reverse of that. Okay, where these heads, right, or even likening it back to Zechariah 11, those shepherds, those false shepherds, are doing the reverse of Ezekiel 37, where they're misleading people and taking them further and further away from the truth. Okay, that is what is meant by them plucking off the skin from off them and the flesh from off their bones and eating the flesh of them. Okay, because like I gave the example of these pastors, by doing this and misleading the people, that is how they gain their money, because they tell them smooth things and lies that these people want to hear. And so these people come in there and pay these tithes and these collections, of like large sums. Some of them even bring debit cards and shit, take out loans. And meanwhile, the pastor is getting richer and richer, and these people are getting poorer and poorer and dumber, and further away from the truth. Okay, so going back to Zechariah 11, them eating the flesh, okay, let the rest eat everyone the flesh of another. It's not cannibalism or literal, but what it means is that they're going to be at each other's mercy, and they're going to be taking advantage of each other. Verse 10, and I took my staff, right? Because remember, from verse 7 on down, the Lord is here letting it be known that because of the disobedience of Israel, he got fed up. Okay, and then he said, you know what? Whatever happens to you happens at this point. You don't get it, you don't get it. So verse 9, he goes on further and says, then said I, alright, you read that. Verse 10, and I took my staff, even beauty, right? Remember that we went into that earlier, and cut it asunder. So the Lord broke that staff, that I might break my covenant which I made with all the people. And why is that? Because we broke that covenant first. The deal that we made with the Lord, right, to follow his ways, and in return we would be blessed, and we would have that the mercy and the favor of the Lord, which is what that staff of beauty represented, while it was whole, we broke that. So with the Lord, by him cutting it asunder here, he's basically saying, well, if you're already in breach of the contract and I'm here trying to mend things again, and you're not taking heed, why should I keep on doing it? And that's why for a period of time, the Lord took his face, he turned his face away from us, and we were in this like cycle of just captivity after captivity after captivity. Okay, just in a decaying downward spiral till the Lord had mercy again and sent Yahushua back to mend us back, to adopt us back to the Father. Okay, and basically to present us a new contract. This one would be under better promises. This one would be one that once we signed that, okay, we wouldn't be in breach of it again. Okay, so verse 11, and it was broken in that day, and so the poor of the flock, right? Remember above we read about the flock of the slaughter, and then the poor of the flock. And so the poor of the flock that waited upon me knew that it was the word of the Lord, right? So they understood that this was of the Lord's doing. Okay, all this that was happening was actually of the Lord's doing, and they understood why, because of the disobedience of us and our fathers. Verse 12, and I said unto them, if ye think good, give me my price, and if not, forbear. So they weighed for my price 30 pieces of silver. And the Lord Yahweh said unto me, cast it unto the porter, a goodly price, that I was priced at of them. And I took the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord. Now, this was to represent the situation with Yahushua. Okay. Now, in context with the actual chapter, right? This is basically dealing with like one that goes to do his job, right? Like a shepherd or whatnot, or in the case of a hireling, right? Because you had the actual shepherds, which did their job because they actually cared for the sheep, and then you had the hirelings, which was like a day job. You come in, they pay you, you do it, and then you go, right? So you hire, how much is this work going to be? You get your price, and then cool. If it's good for you, you deal with it. Okay, but in a spiritual or the prophetic sense, this was done as a representation of what would happen to Yahushua. Okay, in this case, what Judas Iscariot ended up doing by pretty much selling out the Lord for 30 pieces of silver. So let's go there real quick. For Zechariah 11 and 12, the parallel here is Matthew 26 and 15. So let's read that real quick. It says here, let me actually start here at 14, right? Judas's bargain. Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went unto the chief priests and said unto them, what will ye give me, and I will deliver him unto you? Who's that him? Yahushua. And they covenanted with him for 30 pieces of silver. So they made an agreement to say, you bring him to us, you deliver him unto us, then we'll give you 30 pieces of silver. It says, and from that time he sought opportunity to betray him. So after he went and made that deal, right? Obviously he came back, he walked amongst Yahushua and the disciples, but in his mind, he was thinking of how and when he could have a good opportunity to set up the Lord to where he could be betrayed. And that way he could get that 30 pieces of silver, right? And going back to Zechariah 11 in verse 12, it says, and I said unto them, if ye think good, give me my price, and if not, forbear. So they weighed for my price 30 pieces of silver. And in this case, like we read, this was Judas bargaining with the chief priest, and they ended up agreeing upon 30 pieces of silver. And going back to Zechariah 11 and 13, and the Lord said unto me, cast it unto the potter, a goodly price that I was prized at of them. And I took the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord, which is the temple. And when you go now to Matthew 27, let's read a little bit about that. This is when, as it says, then Judas, when he had betrayed him, when he saw that he was condemned, repented himself and brought again the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders. So after he had, betrayed the Lord, now, and why is it that he didn't repent himself up until now? Because the Lord put the Spirit upon him to fulfill that role that he had to play, to be the one that would betray Yahushua. So even if he wanted to, he couldn't go back on it until the deed was done. And once it was done, he tried to go back and like it says, to bring back that 30 pieces of silver. But verse 4, saying, I have sinned in that I have betrayed the innocent blood. And they said, what is that to us? See thou to that. So you, okay, but so what are you coming at us for? That's your problem. Okay. Verse 5, and he cast down, right? He cast down the pieces of silver in the temple and departed and went and hanged himself. Right? Going back to Zechariah 11 and 13, cast it, right? I'm just going to read the point. Cast it onto the potter in a goodly price that I was prized at of them. And I took the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord. Continuing, Matthew 27 and verse 6. And the chief priest took the silver pieces and said, it is not lawful for to put them into the treasury, because it is the price of blood. Meaning that this was pretty much the price paid for the life of a man. So, it's like blood money, as they would call it, so you can't put that back in the treasury. And shows you how wicked these men were. So it was lawful for them to pay money to betray an innocent man so that they can set him up to be put to death. But it's not lawful to put that money back in the treasury. So they were wise enough to see that it wasn't lawful to put blood money back in the treasury, but it was okay for them to do what they did to Yahushua. You see the hypocrisy? No, you can't put the money back in the treasury. That's blood money. That's unlawful. But it's lawful to set up base men to come and lie and say that we heard this man say X, Y, and Z. It's lawful to put an innocent man to death and let off a murderer and say we would rather take him. Crazy. Verse 7, it says, and they took counsel and brought, and this shows you that they were Israelites, because that's Jake today. That's why the Lord said, are not your ways unequal? Because when you look at some of the things that Israelites do, and you look at the reasoning that they had behind it, it's just wickedly sound. When I say wickedly sound, I mean it's only sound and wickedness. Like the only conclusion you can come to is this person has to actually have wickedness in their heart for them to try to even reason like that. As in, you're partial. When it comes to other things, oh yeah, the law, no, that's unlawful. We know that we can't do that. But when it comes to something that is, against you or something that you want to do, then the law goes out the window. What's right and wrong, that goes out the window. You're righteous when you want to be righteous. And they took counsel and bought with them the potter's field to bury strangers in. Wherefore that field was called the field of blood unto this day, because it was bought with blood. It was bought with money that was the price of blood. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy, which is Jeremiah the prophet, saying, and they took the 30 pieces of silver, that price of him that was valued, whom they of the children of Israel did value. Yeah, and that was the price that they valued Yahushua's life at, to put him to death, and gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord appointed me. Okay, so now let's go back to the book of Zechariah, continuing in verse 14. Then I cut asunder mine other staff, even bands, that I might break the brotherhood between Judah and Israel. See, And that's why, you had that division between the nations, right? The tribes. Now, keep in mind that what the Lord is saying here by the mouth of Zechariah is not in maybe, if this would be a right term, like contemporary order, right? The Lord isn't saying that he did this at the point that Zechariah is speaking about it. Because what we just read in like verse 12 and 13, applying it to what Judas ended up doing, that didn't happen until like some centuries after this point, right? But in verse 14, about the breaking of the brotherhood between Judah and Israel, that happened centuries before Zechariah, right? That happened post the reign of Solomon, of King Solomon, when the Lord split the kingdom, right? When Solomon's son Rehoboam came up into power, and then you had Jeroboam, and that was a split. That was the breaking of that brotherhood between Judah and Israel. See, so what the Lord is saying here is he's speaking, almost like collectively, right? But it's not, it's not that all these things that are written in Zechariah 11 are happening at the time Zechariah is prophesying them. Okay, just to mention that. So now you see why the staff called bands represented the brotherhood between Judah and Israel, and beauty and what it represented. And the Lord got tired of Israel, hence he broke both. Verse 15, and the Lord Yahweh said unto me, take unto thee yet the instruments of a foolish shepherd. So he basically told Zechariah to basically play the role of a foolish shepherd. Now, let's actually look into the word foolish here. And let's see what we have. It says here, a while, foolish. I want to see if there's a bit more. Okay, silly, foolish, hence morally impious. Right now, if they say somebody's pious, that's likened on to them being like holy, right? So if we look up impious, obviously it'll be the opposite of that. But it says here, not showing respect or reverence, especially of a god, so ungodly. So the Lord is telling Zechariah, basically, play the role of an ungodly shepherd, which would be a false prophet or a false leader. One that, like we read up above, the Lord said they loathed him, right? When we read in, what verse was it? Yeah, right. Their soul abhorred me, so their soul loathed me, right? Those were those foolish shepherds. And the Lord told Zechariah to do that as a symbol to represent what we're reading here in verse 16 and 17. For lo, I will raise up a shepherd in the land, which shall not visit those that be cut off, neither shall seek the young one, nor heal that is broken, nor feed that standeth still. But he shall eat the flesh of the fat, and tear their claws in pieces. And that shepherd represented the false teachers, false leaders, false prophets that would come up that would fulfill this role right here. So it wasn't, because this didn't apply to just one individual, right? This is still happening to this day. And those, like it says, will not visit those that be cut off, neither shall seek the young one, nor heal that is broken, nor feed that standeth still. Visiting those that are cut off, right? Gathering, i.e. gathering those that are without, or seeking the young one, or healing the broken ones, or feeding the one that standeth still. When you go into that, it basically means one that is already healthy. But feeding them, providing them with the correct, in this case, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, the right leadership, the right guidance, the right food, right? Which would heal our people. The Lord is saying here that they weren't going to do that. But instead, what are they going to do? But he shall eat the flesh of the fat and tear their claws in pieces. Just like we read up above, and also in Micah the 3rd chapter, that instead of coming up and leading you the right way for righteousness' sake, doing the right thing for righteousness' sake, judging correctly, not according to bribes or according to what others would be able to give them, but rather judge in righteous judgment, they wouldn't do that. Instead, they would take advantage of the people. Okay, if they were a leader, they would judge on behalf of one that could benefit them more. If they were one that was teaching you, they would teach you false things for gain. Verse 17, and they do that today. Especially those that have such huge, giant followings, because unfortunately, a lot of them don't have the mindset of, wow, the more people you have, the more you can spread the word, the correct truth. Instead, it's the more people you have, the more money you can make. And if there's the truth doesn't make money. All right, let me put it like that. The actual truth, the raw truth of the scriptures doesn't make money, because the focus of this truth is not for you to become rich off of people. That's why telling this truth and teaching it the correct way doesn't make money. These people want to make money. They want to gain clout. They want favor. They want all of these things. Hence, they alter the truth. They dilute it. Think of the truth like a very bitter medicine. That is just raw. It's not diluted. And that's what we're giving you. These people, right? These false teachers, these other groups that teach you these wayward doctrines, and they continue to do it, is likened onto them having the same bitter medicine, but they're now diluting it, putting sugar in there, sweetening it up. And that's actually changing the contents, the benefits of the medicine, because now you have different elements that are mixing in there, and it's either reducing the potency, or it's altogether just changing the formula, changing whatever the contents of the medicine. And now it goes from being medicine to now something that people are more likely to taste because it tastes better. I don't want to go to GMS. I don't want to go to them. They're always talking about this, that, and that. I don't want to hear that. Yeah, that's the bitter medicine. They don't want it. Even though that's what's actually going to heal them. They want the one, the IUIC. I like the way they do it. Oh, Zechariah. I like, because what they've done is they've diluted that medicine so it's no longer bitter and now it's sweeter. And because of that, more people flock there because they like the taste. You know? And guess what? The more people flock there, the more they can make. So they dilute the truth for gain. And that's why I said the truth doesn't make money. The bet that what we gain from the truth is pleasing Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. Verse 17, woe to the idol shepherd that leaveth the flock. The sword shall be upon his arm and upon his right eye. His arm shall be clean dried up, and his right eye shall be utterly darkened. And in other words, what is referring to here is these shepherds that don't do the work of the Lord, but rather, do the work of these idols, so to speak, because they're, like either shepherds for hire or prophets for, idols, because that's how they make more money. They leave the flock. They don't actually do the work and benefit of the sheep. They don't have the sheep's best interest in mind. Hence, the sword coming upon them and upon their arm and their right eye represents the Lord bringing judgment upon them. Okay, long story short. And that pretty much brings us to the end of Zechariah, the 17th chapter. So, in a nutshell, what the Lord is saying here, as it says, is the doomed flock is, you have Israel, which are likened unto the flock of the slaughter, and the Lord is bringing judgment upon us, different generations, because of that disobedience. Judgment upon the false leaders and judgment upon those that follow them. But in between there, the Lord will have mercy upon those that would take heed. All right. Anyway, Lord willing, this is edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.